Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, here on this fan-based, band-endorsed podcast to bring you the music of Uriah Heep, one song at a time, from the beginning through where they are currently. When I'm recording this, the most recent album is Livin' the Dream. Hopefully they'll be in the studio soon recording their next album. I know they were working on it, but I think that restrictions have probably limited their ability to get to the studio together. Hopefully those restrictions are going to be lifted soon and we can look forward to another album. Now, from the time they record it to the time it gets released, I don't know how long that process is. There's a lot that goes into that. There's the marketing, there's all the physical CD packaging stuff, and then, the replication and all that. There's mastering, so I don't know what the time frame would be, even if they finished recording it today, but I think it's something that we can look forward to. I know they've been working on it, so excited for that. Just actually finally found some time today to sit down and watch the documentary they did on, now if you got the Livin' the Dream deluxe package that came with both the CD and the DVD, I originally got the iTunes download when the album first came out. So, of course, there was a bonus version of a song on there. So I had to get the other version for the show. Came with this wonderful DVD that has a couple music videos in this documentary on the making of Living the Dream, which was just fantastic. And it's always great to see how excited a band is when they're getting ready to record new music, especially because, it's not like when a band does their first album. They might be working on those songs for a couple of years or many years before they actually make it into the studio. And nowadays, a lot of times the basic framework is done, but the song is really brought to life in the studio itself. And there isn't a lot of rehearsal ahead of time. A lot of times it's just, let's give it a couple run throughs. Here's the song. Let's record it and we'll learn it. Whatever we're going to use on the tour, we'll learn those songs, which is fine, but certainly gives an element of spontaneity and, just realistic music, stuff that's honest and stuff. I can really appreciate that. I think if you know the songs too well, you can overthink things too much, try too hard to be perfect instead of being natural. So I really like the fact that there are bands that still record that way and that, really just say, here's the song, let's record it. I love that. But today I have a great show for you guys because I have to say, of all the bonus or extended CDs, I should say, that I've talked about so far on this podcast, this has been my favorite because not only did we get a wonderful double version of the last song with a very surprising demo version of it, we've got a bit different of a song today. So we've got the song 7 Stars, which is a great rock and roller. But we have an extended edition, which is absolutely amazing. I love it. It's been the greatest bonus tracks on these CDs so far. Now the other CDs that have given us bonus tracks are like songs that weren't released with the album, which are really cool. But when it comes to second versions of songs, they've pretty much just been edits, right? And I kind of pick apart the edits because they take the heart out of the song to me. But honestly, like the ones on this CD have just been fantastic. And you'll see when we get to the second version of today's episode. Now, I could ramble on, but we've got a lot of ground to cover. If the show runs too long, I'm 4 minutes in right now as I'm recording. But if the show runs too long, then I'll split it into 2 episodes. You'll already know that because you're looking at your podcast player. But if it doesn't, then I'll just keep it at 1. I'll just kind of feel that out as I go. Again, you already know the answer, so I don't know why I'm even telling you. I'm just thinking out loud, I guess. However, let's get to 7 Stars from the album Sweet Freedom. Well, we've got just a killer intro, really kind of sparks my interest on where it's going because it doesn't really give you any indication of what's going to happen in the song. but has a really cool opening. I love those fast cross pans from ear to ear. Really cool. And then we just kick into a great riff. Everybody just jumps in and starts playing. Got a really good groove, really good feel to it. And you know that this song right now, you know it's a good rock and roll song.
Don't try to be anything else but what you are. Don't try to do anything else but the things you do. 'Cause I had a dream about 7 stars and the 7 good things that you are to me.
Well, you know, when you're hearing a rock and roll song from Uriah Heep, you're going to get a good, strong, powerful vocal. And this is certainly delivered in this song. Really like the strumming of the acoustic in here and the, with the keyboard. It actually sounds really good having those things in combination with each other. You wouldn't necessarily think so. You would think that the heavy keyboard would override it. But I think this is mixed well and they blend really nicely. So you can hear what both are doing. Guitar obviously more into the left ear and the keyboard more into the right, but really good pattern, really good thing to back up the vocals. I love the switch on the drums into that second part there where he hits the toms instead of the snare more often. Really just a nice way to break it up and give it a little more of a mystic feel to it, I think. But and then of course, we got to have a little harmony in there, so we've got that, but really strong, powerful song. I never noticed this before. Something always felt a little bit different about this song, but I finally pinpointed what it is, at least for me, is that everything's off the beat. So if you listen to the bass, instead of the bass hitting on the bass drum and the snare drum, it's actually hitting on the end instead of the one and the two. It certainly gives a little bit different feel of it. Now it makes sense to me now. I never actually just sat down and paid attention to what it was that felt a little bit different, but the groove is a half note away from, or an eighth note, I should say, away from the beat, which is really interesting. Also, we're hearing Lee Kerslake playing a little bit of ride cymbal, which we don't hear a lot, but he switches over to ride when he plays the toms instead of the snare. And it sounds like he's doing some hi-hat lifts where the snare is in spots, because the snare doesn't really cut through as much. It's more of a sound. It sounds like he's just opening up the hi-hat a little bit and it's burying the snare drum. I think it could be, I'm so used to the song as it is. I'd be curious to hear a mix where the snare pops a little bit more. But I think the song is really powerful just the same without that. But it would be interesting to hear what it would be like if that was cutting through. But overall, just a great song. Beautiful playing by everybody. The bass is really laid back for what we're used to. He's not as traveling all over the strings as we usually hear. But I think it's good for this song. I think it's good to have it more straightforward, at least for the majority of it. We'll see if he changes that style a little later. It wouldn't surprise me. I actually don't remember the bass line for the song. So we'll find out as we go forward. I especially love that guitar sound on that last part. Just really cool, very fast vibrato, it sounds like. But just adds such another level of depth to the song and makes it more interesting too, because they could have just repeated the same part from before and put a different vocal over it. But that really makes it stand out and pop. I like it. I've never been one to say I fully grasp the concept of the song, especially this section right here. But the alphabet thing certainly throws me off. I don't get it, but it still sounds cool, and I love the sound of the sort of talk back, the response, I guess, to it. Whatever they did with the vocals there sounds really cool. I actually learned how to say the alphabet backwards from this song. I imagine a lot of other people did too. I've never been pulled over for a DUI, but I heard that's one of the things that they do is they make you recite the alphabet backwards, which is just about stupid because why would you ever be able to do that? I think apart from knowing this song or somebody specifically wanting to be prepared to get out of a DUI, probably would have no reason to ever say the alphabet backwards unless it was like some, I double dog dare you to do it or something. But it's kind of neat to be able to do it, I guess. And I could do it fairly well, but it's really just from the memorization of listening to this song an endless amount of times. But I really like what's going on here musically. It's not changing really at all, but it's just maintaining just that really cool sound, especially the guitars in there. Really love that. And I definitely am going to solidify my idea of what Lee is doing with the hi-hat on the snare, because I heard some parts in there where it really was extra chinky. And that's about the best way I can describe the sound. But it definitely sounded like a lift of the hi-hat pedal just for an accent where the snare was being hit. So I think I'm right about him doing that. In any case, it just sounds really cool. It flows beautifully, and it's just going to go on and pretty much do the same thing until the end. But let's hear it. Well, just as I was recording that last section, my internet went out. And, this is Saturday night that I'm recording it, and you guys will hear this episode on Thursday. So I'm sure that sometime between now and the time I need to upload this, everything will be fine. But it goes back to just another reason why I don't do streaming services. I mean, aside from the fact that the musicians don't get paid properly. You can argue the individual one-time play fee versus, actually owning the song and all that. But at the end of the day, if more people are streaming than buying, that has become the revenue source. So anyway, this is just another reason not to do it. Not only are the artists not getting paid, but you also don't have access to it all the time. If I depended on streaming the music to be able to do the show, I couldn't record right now. And if I was under a tighter deadline, let's say I'm recording Monday's episode right now, what would I do? I'd be completely stuck, and then you guys wouldn't have your episode. So, I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of any of those subscription services. Yes, I'm on them, but it's more you kind of have to be if you want to be seen at all as an artist these days. So it's a sad catch-22. But in any case, I bought the CD. I bought all the CDs, and well, except for that one I'm still trying to find. But fortunately, I don't need to depend on my internet and that one horribly angry looking red light on my modem that is just staring at me angrily. But in any case, we can move on with the song. Now, the other version that we have of 7 Stars is really cool. Now, I like the fact that this one faded out because I kind of want to feel like this party just goes on and on and on, well beyond me falling asleep listening to it, and because I'm just exhausted myself from enjoyment. Whenever there's a good song, that's kind of how I tend to look at it. Like the song is well going to outlast me into the night, and I love the idea that this party just keeps going and going and going. So I think any kind of abrupt ending, I think, would have taken away from that idea for me. And I might be the only one in the world that thinks that or that has that vision of music. But whenever I hear a song that just has just that right combination of elements that you want it to go on and on and on, I like to think that it did. And with an abrupt ending, you wouldn't get that. So we'll see more of that when we get to the end of this one. But the main thing is that now the studio version was 3 minutes and 49 seconds on the clock, like take away a second for, the blank spaces and all that. The extended version that we're about to get into is 7 minutes and 6 seconds. That's a marathon. So the party did go on for a long time. I know that now. And but it has a different feel to it. There's a different sound, some differences in the song, obviously, because it's twice as long. So I say that we just dig in and start checking it out. Here we go. Completely different introduction, right? Different sound. Obviously, this is a rougher recording of the song, but certainly very, very different from what we're used to. The synth even is completely different. I don't recall hearing that being played in the other version anywhere. It could have been if it was more in the back of the mix and I just missed it. Very possible. But in any case, it's very much in this one. And it kind of reminds me of, which song was it? Was it Echoes in the Dark? I think that I said that he was playing that synth like a lot. I think it was that one anyway. But in any case, yeah, so there's a lot of that sort of emergency siren sound going. And I've heard that in a couple of videos that people have made, that sound. I think it's like a warning siren or something. But in any case, the song sounds completely different, and you can hear they're about to kick into, the beginning of the part where they all kick in the other version. But the other thing that's interesting too is that I do hear a couple of reverse cymbals throughout this process. So they actually went to some pretty decent lengths to do this version of the song. And you don't usually do backwards tracking like that unless you're pretty serious about what you're doing, especially with considering what studio time cost back then, and the limited budgets that bands were given by the record companies to do that. So, but very interesting nonetheless. The sound is good. You can see a lot of the basic elements are there. It's just a little bit different. Still very powerful, though. I love the transition from the opening part into it kicking in and getting heavier. Lots of reverse cymbals in this one, which is pretty interesting. But, the whole thing is there. The rhythm is there. What everybody's playing is very similar. It just sounds a little bit different. The same groove. We're not lacking anything, I don't think, in this version.
Don't try to be anything else but what you are. Don't try to do anything else but the things you do. 'Cause I had a dream about 7 stars and the 7 good things that you are to me.
The bass and snare drums are certainly much more predominant in this mix. And now I guess that answers my question about the snare drum. I probably had that in my head because I had heard it just before I listened to the show, much like the last one. I had not listened to this version ahead of time. So my reactions would be very natural and honest and fresh. But yeah, it's interesting to hear with the drums popping a little bit more. I think it gives the song a little bit more of a push. And, that's at least what the bass drum is generally there to do, is to keep it moving forward. But it sounds really good. And another thing that I just realized is I don't think there is a single drum fill in this entire song. There might be in this version, but in the main studio version, I don't think there is a single drum roll. The closest we get is just him alternating from the snare to the toms, but there's not an actual drum roll in the whole thing, which is pretty rare. But, kind of like, this band is really interesting in their songwriting. There's songs with no solos. There's songs with no drum fills. For a rock and roll band, they really make some interesting choices. I think they work. In fact, I mean, how many times have I heard this song and never actually realized I've even played this song on the drums, and it's never occurred to me that there was no drum roll. So there's something that really works about what they do. It's just that they don't write the standard structure all the time that you expect. You know, even the order of things that they do in the song, whether there's a chorus or not, sometimes there's something, sometimes there's like a pre-chorus and no chorus. Like they just say, here's what works for this song and here's what we're doing. It's like they throw out the rule book. I really like that. I really wish more bands got away from that standardization. Now, as we get into what they do in the future, I think there's a time when they do kind of fall into that structure. It might be in the 80s. We'll find out more when we get there. But, you know, the 80s were a different time. Bands wrote differently. It was just a different time in music, in fashion, in the world, in everything. And I think a lot of bands tried to see what they could do if they went for a more commercial sound. But anyway, I'm getting off track. We'll get there when we get there. There's no rush. We have plenty to enjoy. We're only on Sweet Freedom for you know, the chronological order anyway. But let's see what happens next in the song. Okay, that was a little different. But you know what's interesting, and I think I've touched on this before, but just the perfection of the way that these guys sing together. I mean, we've talked about how the music is slightly off here and there because they played it like human beings. There weren't click tracks, that sort of thing. But when you really listen to what they're doing, they are so tight vocally. It's unbelievable. And their voices are so smooth, transitioning in pitch. It really is something to be respected. And I just, every time I hear it, I'm wowed by just how solid that really is. It's just stunning. That sounds so different. I can hear in the very, very background the melody in there, but for some reason that's just super buried in the mix. I don't know if maybe it's not there at all, and that's just my imagination hearing it. But it sounds like it's very, very distant. Just that little organ melody, and then he doubles it. But yeah, that sounds so weird without it.
The very reason I'm living is just for loving you. And the seasons are changing, making it all come true. 'Cause with the spring and the clearing skies, lots of light will fill my eyes for you. Who fills my head with these dreams as I'm leaving my mind? 7 new stars up on 7 are waiting to die.
I have to say, Lee Kerslake has a really good sounding ride cymbal. I don't know why he doesn't use it more. Maybe it's just not in his style, or maybe he didn't think it fit in with this band a lot, but it sounds really good here. I like the dynamics he's playing on it too, because he's not just playing a straight beat. He's putting in a couple of triplets and different things in there that make it interesting while he's playing the toms. But it was also interesting to kind of hear those two parts together that way. The way that the drum beat kept on the toms as that transition happened. And then there was a little weird thing right at the end of that. I noticed kind of an off time hit. But if this was, something that they just kept recording and then they chopped it down to what they actually liked and wanted to put in the final song, I don't know. This could even be similar to the final song, or some of the tracks could be the same if they did a different EQ, a different mix on it, and then and released it with the album just a little chopped down from what this version is. It's hard to tell because the vocals sound so perfect, like they're the same version. I wouldn't be surprised if this was like a rough mix and then they did the mix of the album and they said, okay, let's let's chop down this song a bit because I think it's a little repetitive. We've got these vocals repeating a lot. These harmonies are repeating a lot. So let's chop it down into a smaller song, but let's not actually go ahead and re-record it. We'll just mix it the way that we've mixed everything else, or maybe they chopped it and then mixed it. I don't know. But in any case, the performances are stellar, and I can't tell if they're exactly the same, but they sound very on par. So I tend to think that might be the case. Again, nothing official on that. I'm completely speculating, but I do find that interesting. I do want to talk about the bass for a second, because while the bass is not as adventurous as we're used to hearing, it certainly is very busy. It's just playing this beautiful bump, 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 bump during the verse, and really sounds good. I love the feel of it. I love the timing of it. I love that it's not too bright, but in this version, I can hear it a little more in the mix. It's a little more clear what it's doing. So it's nice to be able to hear that stand out a little bit. And maybe this was designed to be like a bass and drums mix versus the organ and guitar mix. I don't know. But in any case, it sounds good. It's really good, though, to be able to hear in clarity what everyone's doing in this song. Doing the extended harmonies in that on this song certainly make it easy to get to a 7-minute mark, but it all sounds good. I mean, even though it's repetitive a little bit, maybe if they would have done it like on some of the parts but not all of them, it would have worked better. But it sounds great every time they do it, and that's the thing, is there's a beauty in the consistency of the performances here, which goes on beyond the sort of producer hat of, you guys are doing this too much, or we need to back some of this off. Just judging it on the performance alone, it is stellar. There is a really nice second voice when he says the alphabet in parts, really unexpected. I don't recall hearing that on the other version at all. And it could just be this mix, though. It could be that it was buried in the other mix, or it could be that it had been muted in the other mix. But again, assuming that it's the same recording. But I did hear a slight hesitation when he started, almost like, am I really doing this? Just a slight hesitation. But when that extra voice kicks in, that's actually a pleasant sound right there. Very tight. The performances are very tight together, but there's definitely either two voices or a studio effect that's used, like maybe a chorus or something where it kind of thickens it up a little bit. But really interesting, different change anyway. Oh, sure. As soon as I talk about how cool this vocal thing is, then they take it away from me. Yeah, thanks. No, it sounds good on its own, though. It was just a nice surprise to have it doubled there. And now I'll have to go back and listen to the other one and see if I can hear it. But I think we're now at the point where the original version had faded out, and now it's really neat to hear what everybody's doing without the vocal there. You can hear that rhythmic playing of the bass on there. You can hear what the keyboard was doing better, which is just playing along with that with the vocal, which was really nice. But a nice change, a nice surprise. It's neat to hear it this way. And let's see where it goes. We still have another just under a minute to go, so we'll see what they did with it. Well, that certainly answers my question about what the song would be like with an ending, doesn't it? Yeah, I don't like the just ending. I think that kind of goes against that idea that I had before. So I'm going to stick with that as far as the fact that I like it fading out. Having known, though, what they did with it after the fade out in the original studio version, I think they could have kept it going a little bit longer. It's kind of neat to hear the keyboards, hear a couple of harmonies. I think there were some swells in there that are kind of buried in this mix. But very cool nonetheless. And that's a long time to be strumming that same pattern on guitar. So, that it's certainly, there are songs that require patience from different people when they're performing or recording them, because there are parts in rhythm guitar, I would say has to be one of them, that's just, it's got to be monotonous at some point to record some tracks that are a little bit longer, where you're really not doing anything but repeating a lot of the same strumming. Maybe you're changing chords a couple of times in a few bars, but for the most part, it's just, you just gotta buckle down and get through that take. And there wasn't a lot of copy and paste back then like they have now. So it took work. And we're talking about a time when people had to be able to play their instruments. They had to be good at what they were doing to be able to go into a studio and record a tight, cohesive album. There wasn't a lot of punching in. If it was painful, and not a lot of takes that you would get like you can now. You can record endless amount of takes. You're just paying for the time. But the tape would degrade a little bit. If you're stopping and starting it too much, even 2-inch tape, it's going to start wearing thin at some point. So you have to be careful a little bit. But this is a great alternative version. I really love it. I love the extended idea. I really think if I were to clip out all the duplicated parts, it would probably be somewhat close to the original, or at least it would start to fade where the vocals start cutting out on this version. I'm not going to do that because that would just take a ridiculous amount of time just to find that out. But either way, it sounds great. Strong performances from everybody. I love the alternative mix so that we can hear a different version of it. We can hear what everyone else is doing. And just really cool. But you still get, the acoustic guitar. You still get that strumming. You still get some inflections of the keyboard. You get where he's harmonizing and stuff. Really cool. And I'm really glad they included this. This one's exciting to me. So another great song, another fantastic performance from this band. What a killer album Sweet Freedom is, really. Just cool to see their stuff in the developmental stages as well. So that's it for this one, guys. We're at 36 minutes, so I think it's pretty safe to just keep this at one episode. I try and keep 25 to 30-ish, depending on the length of the song. But I think we covered a lot of ground in a good amount of time. So thank you guys for joining me. We'll be back tomorrow. Now, tomorrow, we have a special guest co-host that I'm very excited to bring on the show. A fantastic interview, has his own show. He's been in radio for years, but he's just started his new show, and you guys see it in the show notes every week, or every episode, really, if you look at the show notes. And now we're going to get to hear from him and hear his opinions. Really cool stuff. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show. And thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!